Hey Staten Island, this is HealthWish, a conversation about the state of healthcare in the fabulous 5th borough. Our aim is to raise issues, raise awareness, and raise health. Because when we raise health, we raise everyone. Today, we're back at the Hot Corner, Engine Company 155, Ladder 78 in New Brighton, to continue our conversation with Dr. Michael Cooper, Director of the Jerome L. Finkelstein, MD Regional Burn Unit, and with retired firefighter Frank Morisano, who leads SIUH's community health efforts. In this episode, we ask Frank Morisano about the journey he made from firefighter to nurse to Senior Director of Community Health. Frank describes the community health team's current efforts to tackle food insecurity, youth employment, and to better meet the healthcare needs of all civil service workers. Don't miss it. Give a listen.
Frank, you were a firefighter, although I shouldn't say were. Once you're a firefighter, you're always a firefighter, right? You just go with retired.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Once firefighter, always a firefighter. I still consider myself a firefighter as well as a nurse. I worked on the Lower East Side of Manhattan for about 10 years, Engine 28, Ladder 11. Back then it was a very busy firehouse, a lot of vacant buildings, a lot of drugs, a lot of things. So I learned a lot as a firefighter. That's how I got there.
So just before we go into fires and firefighters, I'd love to hear that from you because you are one of the people that actually has seen both sides. I think it's important. I talk all the time about careers at Northwell and how you have the opportunity to do a lot of different things. If I remember correctly, you became retired because of an injury. Mm-hmm. And at that time, when you were able to go back to any kind of work, tell me how you ended up being, the senior director. You had an interesting path when you decided to go into a different field.
So when I graduated high school, my father was a firefighter as well, and my father thought that I should become a plumber or an electrician, which actually drove me to go to college. I'm the first one of my brothers and sisters to graduate from college, and I actually started on a pre-med path. I wasn't committed enough, and organic chemistry sort of changed my path. So I ended up graduating from college with a degree in sociology, which basically got me a job working at a psychiatric hospital on Staten Island. Great job. And the way I got into to be a firefighter is my father was a firefighter, and he encouraged me to take the test when I got out of high school. So I said, Dad, I really don't want to do it. And I did, just to appease him. Get off my back. Went to college, and my college roommate his father was a firefighter as well. And he really got me into training for the physical exam. So I did really well on the written, I did really well on the physical exam. And once I was working at South Beach Psych, about a year later, the fire department called. It was double the salary. And the second I went to probie school, I realized that it was a calling for me. My life changed at that point. And as I said before, I consider myself a firefighter and then a nurse and then an administrator. And that's just, where my life has taken me.
But then you got hurt.
Then I got hurt.
And what'd you wind up doing afterwards?
So I got hurt. I spent 13 days up at Bellevue after I got injured. And it was over the 4th of July weekend. And I remember, laying in that bed, looking over the East River, and the nurses just running around, taking care of me and other people. I was on an orthopedic, a trauma floor. I had a pretty severe trauma to my leg. And I was just watching the nurses work, and it just rekindled my interest in medicine. And at that point, I was 30 years old. I couldn't go back to medical school, or I guess I could, but I chose not to go back to medical school. So I watched the nurses, and they inspired me. And I got hurt June 30th. September, I was back in nursing school. Because I actually started nursing before I met my wife. I put that on hold when I met my wife because, we were courting and dating. But you just went back into it, graduated from nursing school in 1990, and I've been a nurse ever since.
And your first job at SIUH was?
My first job, and he loves this, my first job at SIUH was a security guard. And I wanted to be a PCA because I wanted to learn the medical side of it. I actually worked there for a year as a security guard.
Yeah, the reason I think it's important is because there are a lot of people who I think can build careers here where the first job isn't the job you ultimately end up with. So Frank comes in at 30 years old as a security guard after having a career that he couldn't do anymore that he loved, and then winds up not only becoming a nurse, but working his way through the ranks to the point where at different points you've led all these amazing groups.
You don't know what your interest is going to be after you get your degree. And through my research, you could have 20 jobs in 20 years as a nurse. I had about 6 or 7 jobs, and I loved every one of them at SIUH. And I really learned a lot.
So then, going back to your firefighter days for a second, what's the value and the comfort from a firefighter standpoint, knowing that you have a burn unit that's accessible to you when you're going on that job? How would you perceive that in terms of a comfort level for people on the job?
No one wants to get burned. And very painful injuries, but as a firefighter, you need to have that comfort, that God forbid you do get burned, you have the best care in the world. When I was a firefighter, there was a burn center in Manhattan that is a world-renowned burn center. Dr. Cooper mentioned that prior. And I've had much experience being up in that burn center. Fortunately, never as a burn patient. So when I was a nurse on Staten Island and we started planning the burn unit, and we hired nurses about a year before the burn unit opened, and I remember we used to put them in all the intensive care units, and Dr. Cooper and Dr. Finkelstein and the educator would train these nurses over a year for us to open. So as a firefighter, it was a welcome new program that we had at SIUH, and it benefited so many firefighters since then. I mean, we've treated so many Staten Island firefighters, and they were lucky to have us here, you here, Dr. Cooper, to treat them. And most of them did really, really well, and it was the right thing to do for them.
So yeah, the association between that unit and the civil servants and firefighters of Staten Island will always be there. So I think everyone knows that the unit's named after Dr. Finkelstein, and he was instrumental in the founding of the unit and is really probably one of the main reasons the unit even existed. But then 7 of the rooms in there are also dedicated to firefighters on Staten Island. And at the end of the day, we all know how incredibly important and how strong the association between civil servants and Staten Island actually is. And we have the highest preponderance of civil servants anywhere in the tri-state area who live around Staten Island, which for me is a demonstration of Staten Island being such a place of service. And I think that's really a wonderful part of what we actually do. And for me, I think that's one of the coolest things for you, Frank, is that you went from being a firefighter to being a nurse to being a nurse leader and to now having the opportunity to run community relations. So you actually now have the opportunity to really directly firsthand go out into that community and see how it actually impacts units like this at the front line of taking care of Staten Islanders, but also the underserved parts of our community and how incredibly important they are. Any thoughts on that?
My whole life has been dedicated to service. Every job I've ever had was serving at my community. Currently, my new role as Senior Director of Community Health is very fulfilling to me. We do reach out to our whole community. We deal with the social determinants of health. We address food insecurities, food deserts. We're doing a lot of work with getting our youth pipelined into SIUH. But one of the most fulfilling parts of my job is the work I do with the civil service unions on Staten Island. I work very closely with the NYPD, the FDNY. We're building relationships with sanitation. We work with the Department of Education. Believe it or not, a lot of our young civil servants don't have primary care physicians. So one part of my job is to educate them on the necessity of taking care of your health early, because eventually you get to the point where you're my age and those things start to catch up to you. The other thing that we do is we deal with the more seasoned veterans of these civil service unions, people that are getting ready to retire. Cops, firemen, sanitation workers, corrections officers, EMS workers. We're exposed to a lot of toxins throughout our career, most things you don't see. So what we do is we make sure that they're as healthy as they can be before they retire. So that's a very fulfilling part of what we do right now.
The other part of what we all do is take care of our whole community, the underserved, regardless of what kind of insurance. And one of the things that I think is really the most impressive about the burn service is a lot of the skin work you do and a lot of the complex skin work tend to go towards people that are in lower socioeconomic groups and actually don't have anywhere else to go. So a lot of the patients that you're bringing into Staten Island University Hospital, whether they be from Staten Island or Brooklyn, are people who often don't have anywhere else to go. So you're kind of functioning as a last place for some of these incredibly sick people. And I think that's work that people should know you're doing, and that they should be aware of what we're actually doing as really almost a hospital of last resort for some of these folks with some of these incredibly difficult skin disasters. And let me tell you folks, there ain't no slew of plastic surgeons out there that are taking in these folks with Stevens-Johnson syndrome and trying to get them back to full health, except for you and your partner.
Yeah, that's correct. We often will have patients transferred far away as Long Island, because many of the other burn centers closest to their homes do not treat those patients. Those patients are some of the sickest patients that we see. And we not only want them to get better, but again, return to a full functioning life. And we've had another condition, hidradenitis, is a condition where the sweat glands become very clogged. And many of those patients are refractory to medical treatments such as antibiotics and steroids. And so those patients will come to us having suffered with this debilitating disease, infection for several years. Many times they require many surgeries, including removing the unhealthy tissue and skin grafts. And as you said, many of those patients do not have the best insurance, but we still take them in. And we're very fortunate to have the administration that understands the need to to treat those patients, even though they don't have the best insurance many times.
Yeah, listen, it's important that we provide the service and that we are able to keep doing that. And I think it's wonderful that we continue able to do it. And to be honest, because there's physicians and groups that are willing to do it and to have the partnership with the community, it's well worth it. So, and just so people have a sense of what we're talking about here, some people who even go home from the unit wind up having like a dozen procedures and spend like a month in the unit, right? Like this isn't the kind of thing like you show up on Tuesday, you come and you get your skin graft and you're home, you're home sitting on the couch on Thursday.
Yeah, that's correct. And we speak with the families, which is very important. We let them know that it's going to be a long road. We let them know that we have the experience to many times get their loved one through what they have to go through. But it is a long, debilitating, sometimes painful process. But we do involve the families. We do involve social workers, as I said before, therapists. It's a whole team effort.
That's great. So just as a wrap up, so the reason that we're sitting at this amazing firehouse and we have these wonderful hosts here is because we really do have a strong tie to this firehouse. Both Richie LaPiedra and Bobby Ryan, this was their firehouse. I know that you have had ties to these folks, you both have, and maybe if you could both comment on those individuals and how this relationship continues to this day and how important this relationship is.
Well, absolutely. And Bobby Ryan, a firefighter, was a patient in the burn unit, and he survived his injuries, and he could have retired, but his love for firefighting and for the community inspired him to go back to being a firefighter. Unfortunately, he succumbed fighting a fire, and the wonderful relationship with his family and also with this company has continued. Each year there's an annual donation. The firefighters collect money, and they donate it to the burn center, as well as bringing toys and books for pediatric patients. The LaPiedras were one of the first families to really support the burn service. The LaPiedras' brother and son, Scott, perished in a fire in Brooklyn. Richie LaPiedra, part of this company, came to the burn center, wanted to do something, and involved his whole family in fundraising, and really has supported the burn center from the beginning.
That's great. Frank, anything to add to that?
So just to echo what Dr. Cooper said, the Bobby Ryan as well as the LaPiedra Foundation have done a lot of good things for Staten Island University Hospital as well as the community. The LaPiedra Foundation through their philanthropy, and Bobby Ryan through the toy drive that he started after his injury has benefited our burn unit, our pediatric unit, and our community as well. A lot of people don't realize that some of those toys go to our methadone maintenance program and brings toys to kids who might not have had a present under their Christmas tree, due to the circumstances their families are living through.
So I do want to say that I think we know as an institution that we need to keep doing more and more in this space. We're actually looking now at different ways that we can expand upon the service to do it better. We're looking at possible opportunities to create a space where you could actually get your tank work done, because there's a lot of washing and cleaning associated with burn, and also get your procedures done. So we're really hoping that as a part of this video, you'll see the beautiful new space. And then we're really hoping real soon that we'll be able to announce even more opportunity to enhance burn and skin care on Staten Island. And I really want to thank you both for everything that you do. I've really rarely met people that are more dedicated to a group of people and to communities more than you two, which I thought was really cool, bringing you together. So we're looking at creative ways to, again, partner with our community to enhance the service, to provide an even better service, and we're getting there.
HealthWish wishes to thank our very special guests, Dr. Michael Cooper and Mr. Frank Morisano. We're interested in your health wish. Contact us at healthwish@northwell.edu. Thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again soon.